This video, I'm going to show you how we can do exception handling in ASP.NET Web API. You can see here, these are the things that I'm going to cover out here. First one is using HTTP response exception class for exception management, and then defining exception filters and registering exception filters. And there is another HTTP class that we can use for exception management in our web service API application. So let's go to Visual Studio where we have all the code written. So here you can see that this is my web API project, and in this I have this person controller defined here. So uh, you can see that I have this person get method out here which returns person entity to me. So on a very basic level, to handle exception, or basically to pass a message to the client, I'm using this condition here. I'm saying person, if person is null, then throw a new exception with the status of not found. So this is a very basic implementation of message passing or exception handling in our API. So what it will do is, when we will run this, when client will call this get method, he or she will get not found error message. So this is very basic, but we need to try something really better. So now let's comment this out, and I have some code written out here which is basically a better implementation of the same thing. So you can see again here, I'm checking if the person is null, then generate a HTTP response message with not found, and pass some contents to it so that the user knows what is happening at the web API side. Okay, now we will run this application, and we will call this get method. So I'm running it, and then in IIS I have this application running out here. So I'm opening it. The application is opening. Now I will pass my API URL, which is API slash person slash the any person ID which is not there in database, say 13. This is not there in our database. So I'll hit it, and you can see here exception is generated since the person object is null out here. So the exception is generated, and in this exception we are actually adding some content to it, and this content will be shown at client end, and person will be returned as null. Since I am debugging it, that's why we can see this exception error message out here. But when the service will be actually deployed, this message will not come. Only client will only see this message out here. No person with IT 13 found. So this is one way of doing user friendly message passing and exception handling in web API. Now there are a couple of other ways also, as we saw earlier. That we just did this exception, HTTP response exception. Then we have exception filters also, which we can use. So in here I have defined a filter class, which is basically a not implemented exception filter attribute class. Uh, so this class, basically what it does, it is defining a filter. That filter can be applied to the controller. Now let's go to our controller. At controller level we can set a attribute saying, okay, this is basically this filter basically is getting applied to all the methods which are not implemented yet. So if the methods are throwing not implemented exception, the error message will be shown to the client. Now these filters can be applied at many levels. You can put a filter on action, you can put a filter by a controller, and you can actually globally register these filters. So this is like applying at the method level. Then you can also apply it at the class level here. And then there is another way of registering this exception filter, and that is in our app start and web API configuration. This is where we can add our filters. So this is how we can use exception filters for exception management in web API. Now there is another thing called HTTP error class, which we can use to return different type of error messages to the client of the web API. Now let's go in here in our code, and then here I have a method which actually do the implementation of HTTP error class. So here you can see this is my get person controller method, and in here I'm returning HTTP response message, and you can see in the request we are creating HTTP error response. So this is the message that will be shown to the client when the service will run. Okay, let's try running this. The application is running, and then in my local IS I have this. I'll open it, and then I can type my API URI, which is person slash any XYZ user ID which is not there in database, since we are supposed to generate exception here. Okay, you can see the hit is come and the ID is 15. So the control will go to see if this particular ID is there in database. No, it is not there. The person object is null. If person object is null, then let's do a HTTP error message formatting and just say F5. Now you can see there is this error the client is getting saying person ID with 15 is not found. So this is how we can use this HTTP error class. But there is another way of using this HTTP error class. See, in this example, if you can see, I'm returning a HTTP response message, not the entity. But we can return an entity, and also we can use this class. So let's comment this method, and then I have a method already implemented which is commented, which is doing exactly the same which we are intending. So in this method, this is again get person, and I'm returning an entity out here, and also I'm using HTTP error class to do the error exception handling. So now let's run this one now. Okay, it's running now. Since my API is already here, now let's hit this. See what happens. See, it's coming. But the problem with this kind of implementation is that while debugging, we get this error. We will not get this error when the service will be in production. The client will actually be calling it. So you can see the person object is null because ID 15 is not there in database. And when person object is null, then we are doing HTTP response exception formatting. You can see we are using this class and we are passing this message, and the message generating, and the null entity is passed to the client. And now we'll say F5. So we can see here again we got the same message product, or basically you can say person ID with 15 not found, and the message with error. And so this was the implementation of HTTP error class with with a different kind of implementation. One implementation is this, where we can actually return where we can actually return a HTTP error response message, and another implementation we can actually return the entity itself with the user friendly error message. Then we have this implementation out here, which is basically doing uh, it is also returning a HTTP response message, but it is using uh, HTTP response exception class. We can also try using try and catch. And so suppose if I want to put this particular thing inside try block and something breaks in the database, then I can manage my exceptions out here and return a user friendly message to the caller of the service. So that is another way of doing it. And then this one is as I earlier explained, a very basic implementation of error message. Client will not, in this case client will not get any error message. So in this except in this video we have covered HTTP response exception class, which is very basic implementation, and also an implementation of user friendly message. Then we touch this with exception filters. We created this exception filter class, and then we applied exception filters on controller level, on the method level, and also we show that we can use the register here also in the web API configuration class. Then we we saw that how we can use HTTP error. So that's it for that was the purpose of this video.